everybody, welcome back to the Art Shack. So today I'm going to be showing you how to draw a waterfall landscape, and in this sketch I tried to make the initial sketch a little bit darker so that way it'll translate better onto camera. I used a 4B pencil for the sketch this time, just for the line work, but normally I would use maybe about an HB or a 2B pencil just to keep things light, that way you can easily erase. Usually the darker the pencil you go, it can be a little bit harder to erase, so just keep that in mind. Use a lighter pencil to make your starting marks. And the autofocus in this video is going a little bit crazy right now. My first recording of this, I realized I didn't turn the autofocus off, so the first minute or so is going to be a little bit wonky, so sorry about that. Alright, so let's get into some of the technicals of what's going on here. I have a tree on both the right and left side of the page here, and in the background I have a couple smaller trees, and in the middle I'm going to have a little patch of sky showing through. I had a bit of trouble putting the sky in first right here because it really kind of threw off my contrast, and putting in the trees with all the leaves, it threw me off just with everything that was going on. But I ended up lightening up that whole area with a cloth, as you can see, just so that it'll lessen the effect of what's going on, because it was really starting to mess with what was happening. It was just way too dark for what everything else in the image was. So a lot of requests I've been getting was to really do a close-up of how I do the trees. So that's what I try to do here. I went really close in to really show you the details that I put into the leaves of the trees. So I usually start off with a usually around a B or a 2B pencil. You know, it's something not too crazy. And notice how I'm holding the pencil. It's an underhand grip, and I usually work the pencil in small circular motions. It tends to replicate the shape of leaves in the end. And then I'll take the eraser and kind of go back in and erase in some areas to make some highlights. It kind of adds a nice touch in it. I'll usually make the leaves a little bit darker where there's a lot of tree branches in the area, usually because the leaves in that area are much thicker. And doing that kind of helps to show a lot of volume within the tree. Keep in mind too that even though I'm putting leaves on the tree, you want to keep some of those tree branches visible. It kind of helps to show that, you know, that there's tree branches in the tree, but it just kind of adds to the likeness of it. That's personally how I like to do it. You know, even though there's leaves on it, I still like to see parts of the tree branches in here and there. So I'll eventually even go back in and darken some of those tree branches at parts of the tree. It just kind of helps wrap it all up. It really makes it look nice. Typically when I start drawing these types of trees, I'll usually start the skeleton of the tree, or just the tree branches, you know, starting with the trunk and then working my way all the way up to the top. And then when I start the leaves, I'll usually start from the top of the tree and work my way down. I like to keep at the top of the tree more narrow, and then as I work my way down, I'll work more out. And then when I get to the bottom of the tree, I'll kind of work my way in again. So in essence, it's kind of like a lollipop tree, but just with a lot more detail, I guess you could say. And when I get towards the bottom of the tree here, I tend to stagger my branches a little bit more. There's a lot fewer of them, so you can really add some details to some, you know, very, very confined areas, while the top of the tree is really showing a lot of volume. And I find that the bottom of the tree, you know, where there's just a few branches here and there, that's where you could really make it stand out, just by adding in some nice subtle details here and there, just to really, really make it stand out. Alright, so here we go. I zoom back out again just to kind of show the overall of how things are taking shape. I'm adding in another tree. I think I added 3 trees in the background. I had an issue with the separation between the trees, you know, being able to tell where one started and the other one stopped, or vice versa. I ended up having to do a lot of things with contrast. I had to really make one side of the tree darker than the other to really help to convey where one tree existed and you know, other trees started at that point. But just a little bit of tweaking here and there really helped to bring everything together. And here I zoomed in just to kind of show you the details of what I'm doing for the further away trees. But keep in mind that when objects recede into the background, you can help portray that by showing less details within them. So there's significantly less details within the trees that are further back, just to kind of show that, you know, they are further away. and it just really helps to show the distance within the image. So there's far less tree branches visible, far less like individual leaves. It's more or less just like a volume of just shape that I'm doing for those trees, just to kind of keep it, in the distance and towards the background of the image. And for most of these trees, I used a combination of the blending stick, an eraser, of course the pencil, and I even used like a cloth here and there just to kind of lighten things up and just to mimic the tones that are going on, just to help to show that there's difference between one tree and the other. One tool I can say that really comes in handy, and you probably see a lot in my videos now, is just a typical paintbrush. I use a fan brush for oil painting, and it's great for just taking away those eraser shavings that you have on the image, or just any excess graphite that's lingering around. It's better to do that than your hand, because it'll smear much less. So just keeping an old paintbrush around is usually pretty handy, and I use that a lot. So here's the tree all the way on the left side of the page, and I'm doing this similar to the other ones, and just putting a lot of volume where there's a lot of tree branches. And on the right side of this tree, I'm making it darker. I want to have it stand out on the on my dark sky. That's why I had to lighten it up a bit. I realized that when I was doing this tree, that it wouldn't really stand out very much. It would kind of blend in. And my light source is coming in from left to right, so anything on the right side, for the most part, is going to be a bit darker than anything on the left. So I had to make that side of the tree just a bit darker. And I had to actually go considerably dark to make it stand out with on that sky that's in the background there. Just make sure that when you're actually drawing like trees like this, you want to take your time. It's a pretty lengthy and time-consuming process to draw little squiggly marks, but just keep in mind, you're not really drawing leaves, you're just drawing the essence of leaves with these trees. So it does take some time. The overall time for this drawing, I think it took me like 2.5 hours or so, but the majority of that was in actually drawing these trees. So it does take quite a bit of time. So if you have the patience to sit there, it's going to turn out well. And here we go, starting some of the rocks. And I haven't really drawn rocks in a while, so I had to kind of remember how to do it. But it's kind of funny because as I was doing it and actually putting them together and drawing them, I'm like, these things are a lot like drawing mountains. And I was thinking, how mountains look and how I draw them, and it's surprisingly similar. And I noticed that a lot with drawing techniques. You can use one thing you've learned and apply it to another. That's how I do a lot of my drawings. I'll remember a texture or a technique that I've done for something else, and I can apply it to something else to help create the likeness of that object. So you can use a lot of things that you've learned around to include it in what you've done or are attempting to do now. There's a pretty cool trick with drawing rocks that I think would be quite useful to you. If you have a range of pencils, and I always recommend having a good range of pencils, something from about a 4H to a 6B, and everything in between. That's usually about all you need. But with those pencils, you can take like a 2H pencil and use the point of it and shade in an area. It'll be very, very light, but when you take a pencil like a 4B or something like that, and then you go over that same area, it'll leave the texture or the line quality of the 2H pencil, but it'll just kind of darken it a bit. So let's say if you detailed an entire rock, or anything for that matter, and you're like, well, I want to make this a bit darker now, and you can't really make it darker without ruining the texture and detail that you put in it. But if you use a lighter or a darker pencil and shade over it again lightly, it's like mixing oil and water, as in they don't mix. It'll leave all that detail that you've added in, and it'll kind of make it a little bit darker. But that also helps add in a lot of texture for drawing rocks. So that's why I end up doing a lot with these. Now, a lot of these rocks, they don't usually take up too much time. It's usually like 3 tones of pencil that you need. You need, the light side, and then there's like the top or the slightly facing away side that's a little bit darker, and then you got the completely shadowed part of the rock. So if you have at least 3 different tones depending on a rock, it should come out relatively volumetric, and that's what I've been doing for this one. But I've been varying the textures on some of the rocks. Some of the rocks I'll do my small circular motions just to kind of make them a bit more rounded, and on the ones that are sharper, I'll keep the pencil marks very, very strict, just to kind of convey that they're really sharp rocks. Here's the I'm drawing in the rock at the very, very far end of the page, and I decided to zoom in at this part just so that you can really see the details that I've been adding in to the image, and I'm constantly switching back in between different pencils here. The darkest parts of the rock are done with a 4B pencil. The light parts are done with like a 2H, and then I'll use a B for everything else, all the midtones and everything. While drawing in the rocks, I want to make sure that they weren't too light or too dark in comparison with everything else. So I kind of kept them a little bit reserved as far as tone. I didn't want to make them too dark or too light. And after I drew in the majority of the rocks, I went into key areas and darkened some areas in and lightened some other areas. So you can kind of play around with things. That's why I like pencil, so you can really adjust things, to a degree. There is a point of no return eventually. If you erase, draw, and erase and draw, it gets to a point where you just can't do anything with it. But I'm adding in some of the water to the waterfall here, and the way I did it was I used like a B pencil and very, very lightly started shading in the waterfall, and you want to make sure that those lines move in the direction that the waterfall is flowing. It just helps to convey the direction that it's moving. And I used a blending stump to blend in all that, just to really make it smooth, because water is very, very smooth when you look at it. And then I took the eraser and erased out highlights within the waterfall just to kind of pop it out a little bit. And I also, if you saw me, I darkened in the tree trunk a little bit just to kind of make it stand out. And now I have that whole section on the right side of the page that's still white, and I decided to fill it in with some grass, but I wasn't going to go for a really, really detailed grass because I didn't want to take away so much from the waterfall with all that texture. So I didn't really overdo it with the sharp, crisp grass that I usually end up doing. So towards the background, I ended up just doing like a shading, just to kind of show the grass back there is pretty far away, and I didn't really want to convey or detail in the grass back there, just to kind of keep things, not so hyper detailed with that. And keep in mind too that the amount of contrast that you add into an area, if you add in a lot of contrast, it's going to bring a lot of attention. So I want to make sure most of my contrast happened where the waterfall was. That's where I wanted my center of attention to be. And notice that the grass that I did, it's kind of the way that it's flowing, it's pointing back into the center of the image. So I wanted to have everything in this picture to kind of point towards the waterfall at the end. So that's one of the little tricks that I did. And I have a smaller section of waterfall that I'm detailing in now. And then the last part was just to add in some of the water details for the bottom. And that pretty much just about wraps it up. So everyone, I really do hope you enjoyed this one, and if you did, please give me a thumbs up, it always helps out, and subscribe. I'm trying to release a video at least once a week, so stay tuned for that, and I'll see you all later. Take care.